Hello, everyone. Welcome to Metaphysical Communion. I hope everyone can see me. I've just been getting into the connections here for the program, and hopefully things are working out well. Please let me know if you can understand what I am saying, because right now I'm using two different systems simultaneously. So it's taken a little bit of a while to see what's coming up here. Computer's been a little bit slow. So let's see what happens. Now, if anybody can write in on the wall and let me know that you can understand me, that would be very helpful. Connections here for the program, and hopefully things are working out well. Please let me know if you can understand what I am saying, because right now I'm using. So just wait for a little word. Okay, Mary Lou, thank you so much. That's good to hear. So I can be understood. Wonderful. All right, so now we can really have a program. So hello, everyone. Welcome to Metaphysical Communion. This is the start of season 3. So we're celebrating World UFO Day. So I didn't want to let that be passed up. And as we know, in the past few days, a lot of exciting news has occurred in regard to the now famous UFO Pentagon Report that was released a few days ago regarding their knowledge or so-called awareness of UFOs, or as they like to call it, unidentified aerial phenomenon. So this has been anticipated for a very long time from many people, especially those who work in the field of UFOlogy, as it is affectionately called, as well as those enthusiasts who have been following these stories and these reports for years. So this has been highly anticipated, and we've all been waiting to see what exactly the government was going to reveal in their unclassified report. So I'll start quickly by saying that, first of all, a lot of that wasn't really so spectacular. Many of you may have seen this report already or have heard what was stated pretty much. And as expected by several people, including myself, we weren't expecting great information to come out. We were not expecting for the government to reveal that, yes, we have found evidence of extraterrestrial experience, extraterrestrial phenomenon out there. They've left it as usual a bit up in the air. So tonight we'll be talking a little bit about the report itself and analyzing the report, as well as my view of what this report signifies for history at this point, and for what's to come. So it's not so disappointing exactly, because at least it offers a spark of hope, and they're certainly not in denial about the subject matter anymore. However, what is stated is basically they're just in a state of wondering what is going on, what is happening. They don't know for sure. And they say so that they don't know what's happening. They can't prove anything. There's nothing that, they say after all these years that they can say concretely, yes, we can prove that there has been extraterrestrial experience, on this planet. They're saying more that there's a lot of unknown, and there's a lot more to investigate and to explore. So that's the first thing. Again, that was to be expected, number one. It was interesting the way this was all handled and how it was all released. First of all, they wait for the summer for this to be released, just about a week before World UFO Day. Not to mention also just a week before July 4th, holiday. So basically, it kind of looks like they're kind of like downplaying the significance of this report, just by the time frame that they released it, as well as making sure that a lot of people would not be so interested in this, because they're more, concerned about travel and about going on vacation and about, feeling released for the first time in over a year to be able to get out into the world again and, travel and go on vacation. So these people know what they're doing, obviously, and they know that people's attention was not going to be so focused, on this long-awaited report. They were going to get out there and live, their own lives and go out and enjoy the summer. So again, they're very clever, if you want to call it that, in their timing and how they do things. Originally, just before the what was it, June 29th, when this report was supposed to be released, and they did release it actually on June 29th, to their credit. But speculation was prior to that this unclassified report was supposed to be 125 pages in length of information that was supposed to be released to the public. Then word came in that it was being reduced to 71 pages of unclassified information. And then finally, towards the very end, it was revealed, even before they actually released the report, that it would only be 9 pages in length that was going to be, provided, to the news, to the media, and to the public. So from 125 pages down to 9 pages is quite a significant drop, isn't it, in the amount of information that they have released. So that again just demonstrates just the way they do things. All the secretiveness, once again, the downplaying of the significance of this experience, of the subject matter, making it only 9 pages in length, just releasing it late, on the actual date, in the evening, finally. All of this is just to show the public that this is something that's not to be really taken so seriously. It's just a minor issue, a minor concern for them. And it doesn't instill a lot of confidence in the public of what this experience is truly all about. So it downplays things greatly. A lot of people already by the next day have probably forgotten about this entire thing. A lot of papers like the New York, Post or so had posted something the first day. By the next day, things were just erased, basically. No more mention of anything. Certain websites similarly. They posted for the first day, saw what it was like, and then the next day, pretty much ignored the information. So it's all in an effort just to make this basically go away and not put too much importance, into it. So again, they know what they're doing. This has been always their modus operandi for decades already. It's about downplaying the significance of things, making it seem that it's not something that people should be concerned about. Actually, it's kind of like fluff, if any more than anything else. Not really very concrete. In the meantime, those enthusiasts that are really expert in this field, we're pretty much expecting this type of release to happen, including myself. When I first heard about this 180 days ago, when they first, stated they were going to prepare this report and it was going to be released, to the world, I knew immediately that this is not going to be such a spectacular event as many people are anticipating. They're not going to reveal that much information. They've been doing this always, for decades. I mean, the Roswell incident, which is really what started all of this interest in extraterrestrial phenomenon, in UFO experiences, was downplayed from the beginning, as we well know. I've talked about this many times already in the past in other programs. I've posted articles, information. For those of you who are familiar with my public page on Facebook, you've seen all that material. I've done programs here in the past, in the last 2 seasons, about touching upon this subject matter. And once again, it's the secrecy that surrounds all of this and the reason, the mystery that kind of, in a way, makes it very compelling, for the public to want to know more. But at the same time, the government is so incredibly quiet about the whole thing, and very misleading, as well, with what they release and what they say and what certain people have been saying, for years. And it makes the whole thing very, very, very confusing, and frustrating, also. Except for the last several years, as we've been seeing more and more programs have been released, more and more people are talking about this, whether it's lay people who have had experiences, whether it's high-ranking former government officials, and a few current government officials as well, who really are talking about this finally after so long, and have been attempting to make the government, basically open up and reveal more about the information that they may have about all of this. And it's making some sort of minor headway, bit by bit. And this is just another fragment, of this, that finally the government, seeing everyone's attention being placed on this subject matter, people talking more and more about it, having government officials also starting to question and push for public information to be made about this. The government, the military has basically been pushed into a bit of a corner in a way, and they had to come up with something to show some sort of significance. And the last few years, information has trickled about the revelations of, yes, there was indeed an Area 51 in Nevada, after all, after so many decades of secrecy and stating that it did not exist at all. And finally, back in 2017, they had to admit that, yes, there was Area 51, and indeed they were, doing experiments or so with their craft and development and secret projects or so, but really nothing so much about the extraterrestrial branch, there. That's something they've always kept quiet about. Now, they're starting to open up a tiny bit more, as we see. And in this 9-page report, what it looks to me from my analysis of this and just reviewing the material, it basically makes it look like they're now starting to put something together. They're starting to create protocols for the examination of unidentified aerial phenomenon, as they like to call it. And the reason they're calling it that, or UAP, is because somehow it makes it less bizarre, less mysterious, or so they say it is. Leaves me for a little bit of loss of words as to why they would come up with this term. They think that somehow it takes the stigma away from the UFO, unidentified flying objects, which was used from the start back in the late 1940s with this, and that somehow it takes away kind of the ooh and the ridiculous connotation that it may have, at least in their opinion. So they call it identified aerial phenomenon. When I hear that term, I think in a way that makes it sound even more mysterious. And you're calling it phenomenon, after all, not objects. At least an object is something more concrete. A phenomenon, I think, makes it even more spectacular sounding and more bizarre, as well. So I don't know what they think they're doing, with this or with that explanation. It sounds kind of ridiculous to me, actually. But this is what they deemed to call this. So looking at the report, they're talking about, yes, they're concerned. They studied 144 cases of unidentified, phenomenon. Only 144. We have almost 80 years, let's say, documented or seemingly documented cases in history of unidentified aerial phenomenon. And they decide only to look at 144 cases, which is not going back that far. I do believe it's back to 2014 or so. I have to look at the report again. Actually, I do have it here. Let me see if I can share screen so you can see this, and I hope you can. Let's see. Let me highlight that. Let's see. Hold on a second. All right. I do have it here. So here we're looking at the official unclassified, Pentagon report from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. If any of you have seen this, you've noticed that they use a lot of abbreviations. The government loves to use abbreviations, for things. So it's dated June 25th, excuse me, June 25th, 2021. So it's 9 pages, very simple actually. And you can download this yourself. You can go into any search engine and locate this, and you can download this yourself. You can print it out. It's for public consumption. So it's out and open for everyone to see. And as you see here, it's the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, which is the one who has been endowed with handling the situation. And they go into their discussion here about the assumptions or some of their concerns about what this could mean if there's some sort of threat, to our defenses and to our safety, which seems to be their primary concern. But yet they can't basically identify exactly what the origins of this may be. They say they have not enough or any tangible evidence to show, for this. And then they go basically a lot into, and I'm making this very simple, because there's no reason to go into heavy detail with this at this point, unless somehow maybe they may, even though they say that it's not going to happen, but may release more information, more material, perhaps an appendix, an amendment to this report with more information. Highly doubtful. It seems that this is all that they're going to reveal for this time period. So basically, it's what their concerns are and what they're going to do about investigating this phenomenon, what they're planning to put more into place, and who's going to be in charge. So different segments, here are going to be put in place, here, for this. So, as I said earlier, it's 144 reports between 2004 and 2021. Very interesting, they chose that time frame. And I guess this is because this is when the military started really reporting heavily and having videos, to show, for this. And strong enough information that it was something they just couldn't deny or could hide very easily. And in the last 2 or 3 years, we've been seeing this for ourselves. This has been released on television, over the internet. So it's been in the public eye for the last several years. So they no longer could just ignore this. They had to step up and say something. They have several government officials, pushing them to do something about this, to talk. They had to come up with something, obviously. And obviously, there's also some genuine concern, because too many of the military have been speaking up and reporting, this. They could no longer hide it. They could no longer deny the reality of this experience. So they were basically forced to have to do something to acknowledge, the extraterrestrially identified aerial phenomenon, the UFO experience. So they had to prepare this study and get these people together to start putting a plan in place. So they say putting a plan in place. And basically that's what the bulk of this information is from what I have been reading. It's how they're going to handle this, who they're going to disseminate, this information to, and how they're going to look into this, the structure of things from now on, who's going to be responsible for what, and how they're going to start looking into this. So it's very interesting to me to see that. And yes, if you see here, they've also decided to divide this into 5 sections and of what this phenomenon could be. So very quickly, let's look into this. So number 1 is airborne clutter. So these objects include birds, balloons, recreational unmanned aerial vehicles, UAV, or airborne debris like plastic bags that muddle a scene and affect an operator's ability to identify true targets, such as enemy aircraft. Well, that's very simple. And of course, that'd be the first thing they would come up with. And of course, they would balloons. are part of this. It seems that the military loves balloons when it comes to associating, this subject, with UFOs, with unidentified aerial phenomenon, and with balloons. They seem to, that's their fallback to everything. Deflated balloons, weather balloons. They just have been using balloons for decades already to explain a lot, of these experiences. So once again, of course, they couldn't leave that out. They've been relying on that for so long. So here it is immediately, number one. Second, natural atmospheric phenomenon. So natural atmospheric phenomenon includes ice crystals, moisture, and thermal fluctuations that may register on some infrared and radar systems. So again, that's typical. It's understandable also. And of course, they can, investigate that in their equipment and what they're using to see. Nothing spectacular there out of the ordinary. We have USG or industry developmental programs. So some UAP observations could be attributable to developments and classified programs by US entities. We were unable to confirm, however, that these systems accounted for any of the UAP reports we collected. Obviously. So they're looking into see, if it's something that's, domestic somehow and unknown. Highly unlikely. I find that highly unusual as well. Then, of course, we have foreign adversary systems. So some UAP may be technologies deployed by China, Russia, another nation, or a non-governmental entity. Well, that's very straightforward and simple, isn't it? It's also very interesting. They just blatantly just go right immediately to the primary adversaries, China, Russia, right away, and other nations, too numerous to name, here. So that's very simple and kind of like, oh, how surprising. Not very sophisticated, is that, in the language? Then finally, we have the fifth, which is other. So although most of the UAP described in our data set probably remain unidentified due to limited data or challenges to collection, processing, or analysis, we may require additional scientific knowledge to successfully collect on, analyze, and characterize some of them. We would group such objects in this category pending scientific advances that allowed us to better understand them. The UAPTF intends to focus additional analysis on the small number of cases where a UAP appeared to display unusual flight characteristics or signature management. So here is where it's the unknown, basically, where they can't fault the other four subjects, here, classification systems. So this is the one that's the most mysterious and lends itself closest to the unexplained, to the unidentified flying object, to the unidentified aerial phenomenon, and what they think. Immediately they state that, they just don't have the scientific advancements to be able to explain this, to be able to analyze it, to explore this. They have to evolve. We're still too ignorant yet in our technologies, in our knowledge to be able to fully be able to really analyze and take a look at this and see what this could be and connect to this. So that's an interesting admission of I don't know, or I just don't have enough intellect or comprehension to be able to, to connect with this yet, to be able to see, to be able to research and find answers, to these questions. So there we have it. So I'm just scrolling on so you have a look. And for those of you who did not see this, what the report is. Again, as I said earlier, you can go into any search engine and find the report yourself, download it if you like, read it, print it out, and see it for yourself. You can take your time to dissect it on your own. And here we go, the explanations for thing analysis, collection, and resource investment. So basically what we plan to do about handling this and how they're going to do it. So it's basically the systems that they're going to put in place and who's going to be responsible for each segment, of that, and who's going to report to who and how, and the sequence of reporting, is here. outlined. And expanding the collection and increased investment in research and development. So apparently funding somehow. So they're going to look into more funding, for this. So that's interesting to me. Let's see how much money they get and from who, from this. So that should be fascinating. And let's see if they let us know at some point. Obviously, they're supposed to, but we will see. And see how long this takes, first of all. As you can see, I'm very skeptical about this entire report. And then they go into their appendices and the explanations for each thing: an identified aerial phenomenon, UAP event, UAP incident, UAP report. It gets a little bit too long. I'm not going to go into all that information. And then Appendix B, also here about how the detailed analysis of unidentified phenomena data will be collected by geospatial intelligence, signals intelligence, human intelligence, and measurement and signatures intelligence. So some of that is in place already. Other things have to be developed. And other things have to evolve in that development. And here's how they're going to break it down and how they're going to, put this protocol, into place. And that's the final page, here. So there you have it. The 9-page unclassified Pentagon report on an identified aerial phenomenon. I don't know how long this took. Was it 2 years or more or so to put together? And this is what they provide. Well, isn't that fascinating? So 144 reports originated from USG sources. Of these, 80 reports involved observation with multiple sensors. And most reports describe UAP as objects that interrupted pre-planned training or other military activity. So basically their focus with this report was on the military experiences and was reported, through the military, not basically, what happened to lay people. The reports that people from all over the country, all over the world, had, reported, whether to them directly or to the authorities or out into the media or so. That's what they state. Their primary focus is on their own in the military. So it seems to kind of brush away, that of the regular person, the civilian, and not really putting that into any kind of, account. Again, that's another mechanism that they're using to try to minimize the experience once again and make it so that, the government, the public kind of loses interest in the subject matter and not take it too seriously. But they will investigate and they will explore, further, and they'll let us know when they have something more in place or some revelation comes up. Fascinating, isn't it? So that's the gist of all of this at this point. And I think a lot of people who are more seasoned, in this field, were expecting this just to be so. Disappointment, not necessarily so. For those who are a little bit more hopeful, of course, they were somewhat disappointed. And of course, for the civilians out there who are fascinated by this subject, great disappointment for them, another letdown. That's all part of the entire experience. Again, the government is going to keep quiet and private about this. They're not going to make it easy. All right, they've opened the door, granted. That's a victory right there. There will be more discussion about this now. They'll have to be working more towards this effort and be more forthright with their information. There will be those out there that will be, on top of them at all times and will just not let this go. We see that already. We see a number of programs that have come through, a number of reports already, a number of people who have been long time researchers dedicated to this field. They've become even more tenacious and reporting more on this in the past few days, which is good to see. And this is what needs to happen. We cannot let the government just slide with this or think that they can get away with it. They've pretty much done that, most all of our lives. This, as I said, this has been going on for a good almost 80 years or more. And indeed, they do know a lot more than they're saying. That we are all aware of. The reasons they can't reveal: national security, world security. Again, we don't know. They could have very, very valid reasons, actually, as I've said many times in the past. We do not know what they are aware of, what they've been made aware of. It could be dangerous for us to know. It could be more than just placing people, the world in panic if they do reveal too much. If indeed, they admit that there is extraterrestrials, watching us or have been here already. What are their plans? What are their motives? They don't want to cause a panic. But at the same time, there's so much talking about this now, and the public is becoming less sensitive to that fear and more knowledgeable, which is part of the reason why this has come into being right now, and this information is starting to come out more. It's interesting the last few years also that more people are talking about it, and more is coming out gradually. More is being revealed. And it almost seems like they're preparing us for something and doing it bit by bit. Again, who knows the reasons why? Some of the information or some of the reasons could be, could take us aback. And I think they're just preparing us gradually, for that. They may not know everything either. That's another thing we have to be aware of too. I don't want to be overly harsh. I know it sounds that I am, but I am aware also that they may know information and things and have made connections that we obviously don't know of, and it could be for our own safety, for our own benefit. So we have to be aware of that aspect of things too. And until things are put into proper place, until things are as they need, until people are more ready to accept this information, and we're starting to get there more and more, we're getting less, frightened, at least I think, about this information and about what could be happening with this. Finally, maybe very, very soon, they will admit, they will open up to this fact. And we're going back, decades and decades of this. I mean, all the way back to the 1940s and perhaps even before then. Way before then, the government have known something. But it's just that it was more talked about, especially in the 1940s, when more extraterrestrial phenomenon was just somehow happening. People were having more experiences. People were talking about it more and more, for whatever reasons why that may be. The government may have had already connections with those from other places. And as we've seen and we've read about or so, they seem to have had this connection, but they cannot discuss it. There's a lot of information that cannot be talked about, at least not at this time yet, for whatever reasons. But the good news is at least that the door has opened and there's more information coming out about this. It's just interesting to me also that it all seems to be happening at this time now that space exploration once again is taking more of a prominent role in public view. And with the work of NASA and the other space organizations, they're becoming more prominent once again in the public eye. And now we see that all of a sudden we have humans now that are going to go up into the stratosphere once again, but this time not just astronauts alone, but now lay people are going to be starting to go up very, very soon, in the matter of just 9 days. We have a flight happening with Virgin Galactic and spearheaded by Sir Richard Branson and his team, who have been working diligently to get the public up into space. And for the past 17 to 18 years, they have been working on this project, Virgin Galactic, and finally it seems to be in the final stages. where on July 11th, Sir Richard and a team of 4 people will be taking off into the stratosphere finally, and being the first to go up into space, basically, into the upper stratosphere, at least for about 11 minutes, to break that boundary finally and have a regular person. Even though Sir Richard Branson is, for one thing for sure, is not a regular person, but still, he's certainly not an astronaut or a military person. He's just an ingenious individual, an explorer, a billionaire, and someone who just is breaking boundaries. And he will be the first. And then followed shortly after by Blue Origin, which belongs to Jeff Bezos, from Amazon. And they too have been working, on a project as well for the past 20 years, even though he has been more quiet about this. And just in the last few years has been revealing all along about this project. We've known about Sir Richard Branson and Virgin Galactic for a long time already. That was always made public for quite some time in media. When it came to Jeff Bezos, that was more silent until just the last few years. So he, his brother, and several other people will be going up in their spaceship on July the 20th. For another, I think, 11 minutes or so excursion into the stratosphere, into outer space, and breaking that boundary as well. So it's very interesting that both these gentlemen, in such a close proximity of time, are deciding to finally, make this happen and bring the regular, person, or the beginnings of regular people or the public, to go into space. That will take some time. You have to be pretty wealthy in order to purchase a ticket right now to do that. But in time, I think in the next 10 years or so, they want to have, the public travel in space above orbit. Fascinating, isn't it? Let's pray that everything goes well, for both teams, and that they come back safely. They are very optimistic that everything will go 100% smoothly and that they will return brilliantly. And we're going to pray for sure that that does happen. It's just interesting the time period has come that this is happening. I like the fact that numerology plays a hand in this as well. Sir Richard has decided to take off on July 11th, 7/11. Numbers that have a very metaphysical and strong connotation, to them. And the number 7, of course, being the number of the mystical, of the psychic, as well as analytical, ingenious. And then the number 11, which has always had, mystical connotations, spiritual connotations as well, higher level, master teacher to things. And then we have Amazon's Jeff Bezos, launching on July 20th. So again, 7/20, but the real significance of that date is because it is the anniversary of the first Apollo mission that landed on the moon in 1969. So July 20th, 1969 is when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon. So it's an homage, to that anniversary date that he will be taking off, into flight. So numbers are playing, an interesting experience here, also interesting connotation, historical, mystical, spiritual as well, which is actually kind of lovely, to see. So there's a lot, happening. And it's interesting that the Pentagon has decided also to reveal this information with their report at this very same time also. It tells you something. There's something more going on here than we are all aware of. Why should all of this be happening all at once? Very interesting. It's the next frontier is starting to happen. People are going into space. And then all the work that's diligently happening to get people, to Mars in the next decade or so. It's all coming together. They need to get people out and away from the planet. God knows what they know that we don't know. And all these missions in the last few years to all the other planets and trying to find life on other worlds like they've never been able to before. Whatever it is that they're going to moons, they're going to the planets, they even went to the sun. They're now going to go back to Venus again and have some sort of craft to land on Venus, on that incredibly 900-degree surface. They're somehow managed to be able to have that happen. And that's the next major step, taken with NASA, as well. We have Elon Musk, also in SpaceX, working closely with NASA. Look at all the marvels they've been able to accomplish in the last year with sending, astronauts into orbit at the space station with their fabulous technology, and then having rockets return and be reusable. And so far, they've been quite successful with that. And Elon is the next one also is going to also focus, I think, more as well into sending public as well, but he's more focused more into working with space exploration and NASA and getting things up there. Not so much about having the general public at this time, going up there. Of the three, he's the only one that hasn't decided to go up there himself yet. So it's interesting to see that. He has a different approach. Each person has a different approach. So we'll see how this happens. So everyone, this month has been very historic with, number one, the UFO Pentagon Report being released finally after all these years. Then we have Virgin Galactic on July 7th taking off into the heavens also and beginning a new era in space exploration and travel. Not just for astronauts, but for regular people as well. It's the symbol of that. And then a few days later, on July 20th, we have Blue Origin also blasting off, and taking, regular people, as I like to call it. They're not regular, but taking lay people up into orbit as well, breaking new frontiers, new boundaries. I feel like I'm in an episode of Star Trek, where no man has gone or where no person has gone before. And that's the feeling of it. And it's actually very, very exciting and very wonderful. Many people have waited a lifetime to see this happen, including me. And I'm so glad that I'm here and alive, obviously, to be able to see this start to happen, to start to manifest after waiting basically my entire terrestrial life since I've been here. That goes back quite a way. And seeing the dawn of space exploration from its infancy, to where it's come about, 50 years later or so or more. It's very, very exciting, isn't it? And truly, kind of fast-paced as well. A little mysterious because they kind of, after the 70s, they kind of like shut down for a bit after they went to the moon. And then there was silence, for a good almost 40 years, which again, I have curiosity, and many people have curiosity about, is what happened? You think they were able to do more? Well, my children, I'm sure that they did. I'm sure that a lot happened that they haven't informed the public of for whatever reasons they have. And I'm sure they've done wonders. If they've been able to do all of this so far, they've been able to do a lot more, but have kept it secret for whatever reasons. And God only knows what marvels that they've done. And God only knows how much more advanced they may be than what they're actually revealing to us. We're seeing all these incredible things right now, happening with technology and going into space. But is it really all there is? Or is there really things out there that are far more sophisticated and far more advanced? And for whatever reasons they have, they're not letting us know. They're not showing it to us. They're not giving up that information. They're not telling us enough. I have my sense and my suspicion of these things. There's a lot more going on there. They've done a lot more, obviously. Why they're doing this in this way for the public, to say that, oh, now we're starting this era of things, who knows? Who knows why? I guess eventually in time we will find out. Very, very exciting time, obviously. This is indeed a historical period for the planet. So we should look upon this with hope, with curiosity, with excitement, and See that, you know, that the civilization is heading to a new level. We're evolving to the next phase. And let's see what happens in the next decade and in the next 50 years. By then, I'm sure that there will be people on other places. Definitely the moon, which I have a feeling they're there already and have been for quite some time. But that's a whole other discussion. And Mars, which is the planet that is the most realistic, you know, to create, you know, a new civilization on. And so those two planetary bodies are going to be very significant. Humans will be expanding into those other planetary bodies. But there are more. Let's see how far science can advance and see if they can even get people to Venus, for instance, even though they may be living in the clouds. Since it is the planet that has the most atmospheric sustainability, believe it or not, you know, for humans to exist upon, not on its terrain, obviously at 900 degrees Fahrenheit, but in their upper atmosphere, you know, for certain. And it's been, you know, kind of rumored from what I've researched or so that there may be some sort of life around Venus, intelligent life in some way or form existing somehow. Let's see if that becomes more revealed to us in the future. But nevertheless, for the human, it's going to be basically living in the clouds up there and working with their atmosphere to make that happen. And then whatever other planetary bodies that can be reached in the future, perhaps going to Saturn's moons, especially that one known as Titan, Enceladus, which are the ones that they're looking at a lot the most, especially Titan, which seems to be the moon that could sustain some sort of existence. And once the science and technology is evolved here more and more, we'll get to see that, you know, manifest by the end, you know, of the 21st century. And then there may be more planets beyond. And then who knows where finally, if indeed extraterrestrial individuals finally reveal themselves and let themselves be known with their technologies, with their advancements, with their knowledge, and hopefully share with the people of this world, because by that time it will be possible. People here would be able to be advanced enough to be able to accept that information, to understand it, to know how to work with these other individuals and the reasons why for that. And hopefully we can all come together and be one universal community. So that's things to look forward to. So very, very fascinating, isn't it? And it seems like science fiction, it seems like fantasy, but at the same time, look at what's happening in the next few days. 100 years ago or more, they never thought that any of this would have been possible. And yet here we are. All of this starting to manifest in this way. So science fiction and fantasy is starting to become more real, more credible. The miraculous is now being real. And we're all right in the middle of this. And it's incredible. And it's something to look forward to and to be hopeful for. And it's a new age for all of us. So again, it is a very exciting time. Enjoy every bit of it. Be open to it, embrace it, and move and onward into the future. So on that note, thank you so much for joining me for tonight's program. And I hope to see you again real soon with other programming as we get another season of Metaphysical Communion. You'll be able to see this once again as usual on Facebook on my page, DeAngelis Colon Transpsychic Express, and on YouTube on the Metaphysical Communion channel. So until when we meet next, let's see what happens in the next few weeks with everything that's going to happen. And hopefully we'll have a lot of good news to report on that. And we can talk about that and other things as well in the next few weeks. So everybody, have a happy 4th of July. Have a wonderful Independence Day. Perfect timing once again for all of this to happen with space and with extraterrestrials and advancements in technology. Just the perfect time. So enjoy yourselves. Go to the beach. Go wherever you're going. Have your hot dogs and hamburgers. Love your family, your friends. Do what you need to do. Embrace it. Because now, as the pandemic is getting a little bit lesser, we can go out more and we can see each other once again. And this is a wonderful thing. So, everybody, peace and love and happiness. Enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me. And everybody, take care.